On today's Jeep news, we've got a lot going on. We've got some recalls, the new 2025 Wrangler, as well as Jeep's plan to help turn around the brand. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you guys haven't found out, the 2025 Jeep Wrangler is available to order, and we did a full-length piece on that in the most previous video, the most recent video to this one. So if you guys really want to see what's available on the order guide, what the pricing looks like, definitely check that out because we went and took a deep dive into the 2025 Jeep Wrangler. In this video, we're going to touch on that a little bit, but we're going to talk about what is going on in Jeep news. The first thing I wanted to talk about is a couple recalls that I wanted you guys to be aware of just in case your vehicle is found to be in that recall, as well as the other one isn't a recall, it's more of like a probe into what's going on. So the first one, the recall, is one that I've just been made aware of. I actually tried my VIN out into it, and mine's not affected because of the reason this recall is out there. This affected, I want to say, I don't even know the exact number, but it's those guys with the smaller instrument cluster. So if you've got a Gladiator or a Wrangler with the smaller instrument cluster, I'm talking about the one that doesn't have the full digital display in the center, the 3.5 inch. Ryan's got that in his, and my dad has it in his. Mine has the 7 inch, the full display. They are recalling a decent amount of those. So you type in your VIN, you can look at the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, the website, or you'll probably get a letter in the mail for a potential short circuit in the back. So the dealership will fix it, they'll hook you up, you just got to contact them. But that's a pretty big recall. So it's probably a lot of these clusters that went out that were the smaller versions in probably the sport models, most of the sport and the Willys trims, that were affected by this. So I want you guys to just be aware of this in case yours is affected. You don't get the letter in the mail, you want to be able to check this out and see if yours is part of that list. So that's kind of interesting to me. I wonder what the remedy is for it. Maybe they pull it off and put it on a circuit board. We'll have to see if Ryan's is, because I haven't even looked at it. He'll probably get a letter in the mail. Like my wife with her Grand Cherokee gets like one a month. That was the first year of that.
The Jeep app show you too if you have a recall?
The Jeep app will, yeah. I actually have an open recall on mine. They forgot to include the jack spacer in my Jeep, the little 2-inch one for the Extreme Recon 392. So our local dealership's gonna order me one in, but pretty bad recall there for me, you know, forgot that jack spacer. But yeah, the Jeep app will show you as well. So great point, Ryan. If you guys aren't on the Jeep app, you can log it, have your garage in there and see what vehicles have a recall. And you can even schedule like your maintenance or get a reimbursement if you've already completed the recall. But that's kind of the first one there that we wanted to talk about. The second one that we're gonna bring up isn't a recall. So I know I mentioned recalls, but the second one is a US kind of group, or I don't know if it's the federal government, is probing in to an investigation that there's been some engine fires or Jeep Wrangler vehicle fires stemming from an electrical connector on the power steering pump. So they said that recall, if it were to be all of them, is like 790,000 Jeeps. They didn't say what the engine configuration was, if it's a 4xe, if it's a diesel, if it's a whatever engine it is, but apparently it's happened to, I want to say 9 vehicles have reported it. And the one guy, there's like 2 of them under 1,800 miles total on the Jeep. One guy hadn't driven it in 2 weeks and it just kind of burned down out in the driveway. There's always going to be flukes. There's going to be stuff like that happens. And I know everyone wants to just go and rip Jeep apart and bash their quality. Jeep's probably got, Ryan, how many connectors do you think are in a Wrangler? I guarantee 500, 600, 1,000, you know. Stuff does happen when you're building a vehicle. I want to see what the investigation looks like to see if they can pinpoint exactly where it's coming from and what's happening. But that has made the news now and people are looking into it. So I think it's not something that we all need to worry about right now. I just think it's something to keep an eye on if that does come out. Once again, that would be a recall in the Jeep app. And if it's a connector, it's probably a simple solution. They probably pop the connector off, resolder on a new one or recrimp a new one on and clip it in and it's good. So that's kind of 2 things, the addressing the concerns right away for this Jeep news video. The other big concern or the big elephant in the room is that a lot of Jeep's top brass is gone. So Jim Morrison is gone. A lot of these guys that have been with Jeep, with Ram, with Stellantis for a long time have kind of exited, and there is a new wave of the Jeep CEO, the Jeep North America director, all that kind of fun stuff. I don't know all of their names off the top of my head, but they've been saying that Jeep's numbers have been declining, you know, and it's statistically reported, it's showing that Jeep has been declining. I want to say from 2018 to now, it was something like 34% decrease in sales. That's a pretty extreme sales drop. And I would even venture more to say that the majority of that happened in the past 2 years, because that's when prices really started to get astronomical. Now, why I'm saying all this, it's because a lot of you guys in the comments are talking about it. The prices for these things, and Ryan and I both agree, they've gotten crazy. I mean, a Jeep is a lifestyle vehicle. It's a brand. It's a fun, awesome vehicle. It's a very expensive vehicle at this point. However, I think that they need to incorporate a lot more features and incorporate a lot more things to really make it worth its weight in gold. I know the 2024 Wrangler was a huge step forward, and I think it was a step in the right direction by making that Uconnect 12.3 on all trims. People don't buy a Jeep just to go wheel it in the woods every day like they used to back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. This thing is commuting you back and forth to work. It's going to soccer practice with your kids. It's going to be hitting the trails. You need more features in these Wranglers, and I think the 2024 Wrangler was the first iteration of those features coming out to all the trims, right? Curtain airbags, bigger screen, wireless CarPlay. Jeep's always like 10 years behind. So I think they could get away with that in the past because the price points were so affordable, right? You could pick up a TJ for 17 grand. You didn't care if it barely had a radio and half doors. Now for 40K, and I don't have power windows, power locks, wireless CarPlay, like, okay. That's where it starts to get a little bit out of hand for folks. I think Jeep is looking forward to the future. There's, I want to say it's like Dare Forward 2030. And I hate to say it because it's like a circle back, like corporate meeting. Let's have a Teams call, you know. It does seem like there have been some changes. And I will say that because a lot of the more techie features, the curtain airbags, all that has been added to even your base trims, which is really cool to see. But then also for 2025, which we'll touch into a little bit, prices haven't gone up at all. You know, $100, $200 at most, MSRP wise, from what we've seen at the day of this filming. So it seems like they're aware that the prices are pretty up there for folks. And if they increase them anymore, they're really going to alienate a lot of buyers and alienate a lot of people from picking this over, you know, a 4Runner, a Ford Explorer, something of that nature, which are really out there and have some great reviews. So what I think Jeep needs to do is they really need to listen to their customer base. We talk to Jeep people that work at the dealerships. We talk to fans. We talk to enthusiasts. We talk to all sorts of people. And all of us say the same things. You know, give the Jeep people what they want. It's not a hard brand to run. And I say that as I'm sitting here in a small shop as they're working on a multi-billion-dollar company. But I think they really need to listen to their enthusiasts, get back to basics, and start working with some easier branding and marketing. But yeah, that's kind of our opinions on what Jeep needs to do. We've been talking about that for quite some time, but it's neat because the 2025 Wrangler is out. Now, speaking of that, a little quirk that we actually saw the other day. This is weird, if I didn't look close enough, I wouldn't have even noticed this. So walking by a line of 2024 Jeep Wranglers, we noticed that about half of them had the original style LED fog light. You know, the top that kind of has that like half little circle shape and then shines down on the reflector, to more of a like cylindrical in the center shape that matches almost a headlight. They were updated LED fog lights. There's like been no info about that, nothing talking about it in the back end, but it was like half of them had it, half of them didn't. The Fathom Blue 392 Final Edition didn't have the updated fog lights. And then a lot of other 2024 Willys, the 4xEs, Gladiators, all sorts of things, half of them had it, half of them it didn't. So are they going to be going with some different products like that? And will we see more updates? Because those were obviously new fog lights. And they're not just going to throw that in for a random reason unless they had like supplier issues. But that's kind of a big change to go from what we've had from 2018 to 2024 and then change it up.
Especially since there was back-to-back 24s that...
It was like old, new. And it was funny because they were like back to back. Yeah, and there was no rhyme or reason.
They all got delivered at the same time.
Yeah, and I think probably what happened is either Jeep chose a new supplier and started assembling bumpers with them, and those bumpers sit on a shelf. They pull one off, put it on the Jeep, pull one off, put it on the Jeep, and it's kind of at random. But as long as it meets the OE certifications, it's the LED group, it's going to go, you know? So will we see some more options when it comes down to that? We'll have to wait and see in the future, but that was a subtle one that not even Jeep talked about, so maybe it's just some sort of supplier issue, or those are the new lights and they just didn't care to tell anyone. For us, I think it's Jeep news, but for them, maybe they're just like, throw the dang lights in and call it a day. But let's hear about your opinion on this entire video. You know, we want to talk about those recalls, wanted to talk about a little bit of the future, and then do a fun one. Let me know what you think about those fog lights. Ryan likes them. I like the old school ones. We rip them out anyways, so it really doesn't matter. But let us know down below in the comments if you'd kind of like to see some refresh, maybe in some lighting fixtures, maybe in some different things on the exterior of the vehicle, what Jeep could do to maybe modernize it a little bit more and change it up without drastically increasing the price point. So we want to hear about that down below in the comments. Now, until next time though, we're going to film some more cool content here all about the 2025 Wrangler. Ryan's behind the camera and I'm right here in front of you. We want you to get out there and earn yours.